He's sat down with us before, and we're very appreciative of his time. It's definitely a busy moment in the city, so thank you for joining us, Councilman.
No problem.
All right, so we have a couple of questions. We'll get right into it. On November 30th, 2013, MLive's Amanda Emery reported that you were arrested for alleged drunken driving and possession of marijuana on I-475 early Saturday morning. You have seemingly been in and out of court ever since, defending yourself against those charges, and last I checked, the city had spent more than $20,000 in its attempt to prosecute you. Where does that case presently stand?
Well, what's more important right now than that case is, for me, getting Karen Weaver elected mayor of the city of Flint. I'm not focusing on me and some of that nonsense. I call it nonsense because, one, the OWI, a jury, found me not guilty after I represented myself. Two, possession of marijuana, we ain't seen none yet to this day, not in the trial, whatever those allegations, ain't seen none. The jury found me not guilty of possession of marijuana. It was a third charge, failure to give fingerprints. We gave fingerprints. The jury found me not guilty of that charge. That would, another charge of no proof of insurance. We had proof of insurance. Those cars we drove was from Patsy Lou's dealership. Every car we drive had insurance. Nobody ever asked for insurance. The other charge was not reporting an accident. The allegations was the car hit a curb, got flat tires, and you're supposed to sit there and wait for the police to come while you change the flat or you report it. The officers say if it's $1,000 or more damage, it's a failure to report an accident. I told them if it's 2, 3, 1, or whatever, how many flats, they only cost $35 a piece, so it never was over 1,000. The jury hung up on that. The OWI, the jury found me guilty of impaired driving, a lesser charge, because we was at .08 and nobody ever seen us driving, but they did say guilty of impaired. I believe legally the only reason they said guilty of that charge is because Judge Perry didn't let me argue that part of the case, and so we appealed that to Judge Farrah's court. Judge Farrah seen the arguments we made about how Judge Perry cut off my arguments on that, and he overturned that conviction. And so now that's not enough. That's a not guilty. So what they want to do on election day, coincidentally, because I wanted to be at the polls in the first ward campaigning for Karen Weaver, they want to start a new trial on the impaired and the not reporting accident, the one the jury hung up on. And so those two, I'll represent myself. That's how it stands right now. The morning of November 3rd. If I get not guilties on that, it's all over. If I get a guilty, it'll be my first traffic ticket in 40 years. So all of this has come down to a traffic ticket. That's what I said from the beginning. A lot of those charges, in my opinion, was trumped up by the city attorney, the mayor, and them. Remember the emergency manager, and they was asking for my resignation before I even went to trial. I had so many cameras around me, you'd have thought I was a NBA or NFL star. And so, you know, it's a high profile case, and I can assume that we'll read about it as we go into the second trial. If we get a good jury of our peers, I don't think you should be found guilty for standing outside of a car waiting till somebody come do something. People were ran away from the scene. So the facts of the case, I won't try the case here on this media video. I don't do that. I'll wait to get in a courtroom, the proper venue, and we will try the case and see what the jury decides. I welcome anybody and everybody to come to that proceeding. That'll start about 8, 9 o'clock on November the 3rd in Judge Perry's courtroom. They have assigned a judge out of Lansing to appealed it. Judge Farrer agreed. So that's where we at. You said it cost them about $20,000.
That was the last I heard, approximately 22,000, and that was an estimate that I came across a few months back. So I don't know how much they've invested in this prosecution.
They spent more than I have. You would agree on that?
I would have no doubt. Despite all that publicity,
we pray on our knees. We hope for justice.
Amen. Despite all that publicity that was basically you had going against you at that time, you got 1,194 people to vote for you in the primary.
Almost 1,200.
Almost 1,200
I like
people.
1,200. 4 more people would have been 1,200.
Right, so
1,196. Yeah.
So you had a substantial part of the city that was behind you.
Well, you know, they had me arrested in the middle of the election. I was in the city council meeting talking about how high the weeds was. I was talking in council meeting and I was arrested. That trial is scheduled to start December the 1st. You shouldn't be arrested for speaking about how tall weeds is in a council meeting. There's no council rule tells you you can only talk 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I'm an elected councilman. I'm an elected councilman. I represent 11,000 people. Issues from bad water to high weeds, crime, jobs, murder. I mean, who makes a council president and chairman have the nerve to tell another equally elected council person how long to speak and then tell the police to arrest you and they do it? I'm the chairman of the rules committee this past year for the city council. I know the rules. So they did that ploy to discredit me. I believe had I not been arrested in the middle of the election to try to discredit me, I might have got those other 4 votes. I might have had 1,000, not 1,196, but 1,200 or more. And I think Davis shouldn't have been in that race. I've been around politics for 20, 30 years in the city of Flint. We're in my office. Davis stood in my office one place and said he wasn't running. He double-crossed me. Somebody, Scott Kincaid, or some people talk to him because that's his idol, in my opinion. He always talks about Scott Kincaid. I'm like, don't listen to that guy. He fooling. He thought he'd get more votes, and he cost the councilman votes, and he lied to me. He said he wasn't going to run and ran anyway. Sometimes we are our own worst enemy. That's why I'm saying don't focus on Mays now. Let's focus on getting Karen Weaver elected. If you add my votes and her votes, she wins. If they think she's more clean cut than me, I'm thinking it too. Let's get her elected.
Going back to the water issue a little bit and sticking with the council theme.
I'm gonna keep talking about getting Karen Weaver elected, and after 2 weeks, I'll talk about whatever you want. But go ahead.
Well, tell me about this. Andrew Heller came out and said that the city council caved by voting too easily to contribute the $2 million that the city doesn't have to pay for the switchback to the Detroit water, criticizing you guys for basically passing that legislation. What's your response to that?
I look at Andrew Heller's column as like a comedian, a clown column. You know, Andrew Heller makes some good points, but I've never seen Andrew Heller in a city council meeting discussing the real business, budgets and funds. I've never seen Andrew Heller out marching and protesting for water. The people I represent, they not only want good water now, because we just heard, you know, as we do this interview an hour or so ago that the water is flowing from Detroit, but they wanted good water months ago. I don't know where Andrew Heller stays. I don't think he stays in my ward, but the people I represent wanted good water. I was reportedly told 16 million sitting in the reserves in the water and sewer fund. You know, in my opinion, Walling raised the water rates illegally, unlawfully. Not just my opinion. The Court of Appeals ruled twice that Walling raised the water rates unlawfully and illegally, and Judge Hayman ruled it. So that means we got some people's illegal money sitting there, $16 million worth, and Andrew Heller didn't hear what I hear. I didn't move too hastily. Scott Kincaid, Josh Freeman, Walling, they moved too slow. We should have spent money and never should have been stopped spending money, giving money to Detroit. They done messed up the infrastructure. The money they think they gouged from the residents and saved and made, the lawsuit for illegally raising the water rates with credits and refunds is going to cost us probably 40 to 60 million to fix this mess that Wally made by unlawfully raising them water rates. Refunds and credits. I average 31,000 customers or so, might average 3,000 to 4,000 a piece. And then 13,000 water liens. You know what a water lien is?
No, sir.
That means when you allegedly have a water bill from these unlawful rates and your bill is $1,000, $900, they took that delinquent water bill and put it on your taxes. People lost their property because they couldn't pay the property taxes. So it's 13,000 water liens who might have had illegal water liens because the price was illegally raised, lost some of their property.
Explain to me why not just focusing on Walling's negatives, but Karen Weaver's positives, why people should get out and vote for her on November the 3rd.
Because she don't have a bad track record right now. She's a PhD person. I know her personally, and you can talk to her. She realizes that she's gonna have to put good staff around her. If we was under the old form of government, maybe I would be her governmental operations or chief of staff. You know, she's smart enough to pick people. Chief legal officer, I don't think she would keep Peter Bay, and you know, he's given some bad legal advice for the city.
You think you should share in the blame for the water rates by not advising Walling to
He's definitely 100% to blame because he should have told him legally, you can't do that. He should have knew what the courts knew proactively. Michael Townsend, the finance director, told him that. And Michael Townsend got fired by Walling, and Walling did it anyway. And then Michael Townsend won $100,000 whistleblower case against Walling and the administration. You knew that, didn't you?
I've heard about a lot of suing going on by the same groups of people, actually the same lawyers on different sides. It's something I'd like to dig into a little bit more.
Yeah, you'd have to have about an hour, 2-hour show. But what I'm telling people is if you don't know the details of what we know downtown, then you can decide who you listen to. You can listen to the people who asked for your vote, who messed it up, who got a vested interest on what they're doing. Or you can listen to the people like me who are crying out in the wilderness trying to tell you, let's change leadership. I would take a chance with you, Tim, because that's just how it goes. Walling didn't know nothing when he won, and we wasn't under emergency manager. Didn't nobody really know who he was. They said he was a Rhodes Scholar. He hadn't been around City Hall. He hadn't been in Flint government. So Karen Weaver has that same opportunity. And if you are a fair-minded person and you put the right people around you, this guy is trying to keep some of his failed staff around him. And he's failed. You can't be a nice guy and don't speak up for the people you represent. Ain't no way I'm gonna get that $95,000 a year that he been getting it. And I ain't gonna tell early off. I would tell early I wouldn't care if you take my money. Something wrong with this water. He just kept saying it was safe, it was safe, it was safe. We had scientists, Bocock and others telling us something was wrong with it. We never heard any public outcry from our leader. The buck stops with him. Crime, the murder rate is high. We got over 10,000 complaints stacked in the detective bureau. Some people is in there 5 and 6 times. I've hollered out. I wouldn't care if you bring Blue Badge in. I wouldn't care if you bring church members in, volunteers. You got to sort through that stack. You can't let You gotta provide leadership. Clean that stack up, get them warrants issued, and get people off the street. We are short in the detective and undercover staff of the police department. If you end up getting killed, Tim, you gonna wish that they had listened to me as far as getting some killers off the street. Jobs. We don't have an economic development director in City Hall. We ain't had one since Jack Litzenberg and Richard King, manipulated and did money and grants and built Auto World, Water Street Pavilion, the Hyatt Regency, $64 million for Auto World, $32 million for the Hyatt Regency. I've told them, you need an economic development director in City Hall to create jobs and put plants back on our industrial land. That master plan don't go as far as it should be as far as the industrial land as it relates to the master plan. Walling will hear me talk and then write notes. You gotta be a leader. I remember when I ran for mayor 8 years ago, when I said the master plan was number one. After that, he had been in there 4 years, 6 years, whatever. He developed the master plan. This guy just listened and act sometime after the fact. The water is a perfect example. It's safe, it's safe. Now after the fact, he's making an announcement. We're doing the best we could do. We looking for leadership, not followship, and not quietship. Nice guys. We looking for a real mayor. This guy has failed the city. Hey, I don't want to talk bad about him because he should be in history. But that's just what history. His record is bad. You got a football, basketball coach at a major university. Some win, some lose. Let's move on.
Councilman, thank you for your time. That's Eric Mays, everybody. Thanks for watching.